You've probably noticed it. Your grocery bill is a little higher, and filling up your car costs a little more. It feels like everything is getting more expensive. Then, you hear that the government is adding new taxes, tariffs, that could make imported goods even pricier. At the same time, you hear about Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve trying to fight rising prices. So what's really going on here? And can the Fed's strategy actually help your family's budget? Or are we all just caught in the middle of a policy tug-of-war? It feels like the government is fighting itself, and in a way, it is. On one hand, you have fiscal policy, which includes government spending and taxes. A huge part of that policy in 2025 involves tariffs, taxes on goods we import from other countries. These have been implemented for all sorts of reasons, from protecting American industries to applying political pressure. But the immediate result? They make many of the products we buy more expensive. On the other hand, you have monetary policy. That's the Fed's job. The Federal Reserve, led by its chair, Jerome Powell, operates independently with a totally different goal. Its main mission, given by Congress, is to keep prices stable and employment high. Lately, that's meant one thing: fighting the very inflation that's jacking up your bills. So you have one part of the government pushing prices up with tariffs, and another, independent part trying to pull prices down. Your wallet is stuck right in the middle of this economic tug-of-war. The big question is whether the tools Jerome Powell is using can actually win against the price hikes from tariffs and give everyday Americans some relief. The answer is more complicated than you might think, and it gets to the heart of the challenges facing our economy today. First, let's break down what a tariff is without the jargon. Think of it as a cover charge for a product to enter the United States. For instance, the government might put a tariff on imported steel to help American steel companies compete. But who really pays for that? While the company importing the steel writes the check to the government, they don't just eat that cost. They're a business, so they pass it on. The company that uses that steel to build a car now has to pay more. And when the car company's costs go up, they raise the price of the car you see on the dealership lot. This isn't just a theory. In 2025, we've seen a dizzying array of new tariffs. This includes the so-called Liberation Day tariffs, which set a new 10% baseline tax on imports from most countries. But it didn't stop there. We've also seen much higher targeted tariffs placed on specific goods like steel, aluminum, and automobiles, and massive duties on goods from China. The average U.S. tariff rate has surged to levels not seen in decades. When the cost of everything from raw materials to finished products goes up, it creates a ripple effect across the entire economy, eventually landing on the price tags you see every day. The goal might be to boost local manufacturing, but the undeniable side effect is a direct hit to your buying power. It acts as a direct fuel source for inflation, making the Fed's job a whole lot harder. Now let's flip to the other side. Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. The Fed is designed to be independent of the President and Congress, keeping short-term politics from messing with long-term economic health. The Fed has what it calls a dual mandate: keep employment as high as possible and keep prices stable. Stable prices is just code for keeping inflation under control, aiming for about 2% a year. When inflation gets too high, the Fed's number one weapon is the federal funds rate. This is the interest rate banks charge each other for overnight loans. When the Fed raises this rate, it makes borrowing more expensive for everyone. Banks pass that cost on, and suddenly your credit card, car loan, and mortgage rates all go up. For businesses, it gets more expensive to borrow money to grow or hire. The whole point is to put the brakes on the economy. When borrowing costs more, people and businesses tend to spend less. When spending slows down, demand for products falls. When demand falls, sellers can't raise prices, so as Alyssa might even have to cut them to attract customers. This is how the Fed cools things down and fights inflation. After a series of cuts in late 2024, the Fed has held interest rates steady for much of 2025 in what it calls restrictive territory, meaning high enough to actively slow down the economy. The target rate has been held in the 4.25% to 4.50% range, a level specifically designed to bring inflation back down toward that 2% goal. So while tariffs are pushing prices up, Jerome Powell has been stepping on the monetary brake pedal. This brings us to the core of the issue. With these two powerful forces working against each other, can the Fed's interest rate hikes actually cancel out the inflation caused by tariffs? Here's how Jerome Powell sees it. In a recent speech, he acknowledged that the effects of tariffs on consumer prices are clearly visible. However, the Fed's view is that these price hikes are likely a one-time shift in the price level, not the start of a long-term runaway inflation problem. Think of it like a boulder suddenly appearing on a road. It's a big one-time obstacle that raises the level of the road, but it doesn't make the road itself permanently steeper. The real danger, and the thing the Fed watches like a hawk, is inflation expectations. If people start to believe prices will keep rising fast, they change their behavior. You might rush to buy things now, which pushes prices up even more. Crucially, you'll ask for higher wages to keep up. When businesses have to pay higher wages, they raise their prices to cover the cost. This creates a dangerous wage price spiral that's incredibly hard to stop. The Fed's main goal is to keep those long-term expectations anchored at 2%. By keeping interest rates high, Powell is sending a clear message: no matter what, we won't let a one-time price shock from tariffs turn into an ongoing inflation nightmare. He's willing to cause some short-term economic pain to prevent the catastrophe of out-of-control inflation. But for you, this means you're caught in the crossfire. Tariffs are raising the cost of goods. The Fed's response, higher interest rates, is raising the cost of borrowing. It's a double whammy for your budget. The Fed is essentially arguing that the pain of a higher mortgage payment is a necessary evil to prevent your entire savings from becoming worthless. The situation is a tightrope walk. Lately, Powell has started to change his tune slightly, acknowledging a shifting balance of risks and a cooling labor market. He's hinted that rate cuts could be on the horizon to avoid tipping the economy into a recession. In fact, after his latest comments in August, many analysts are now betting on a small rate cut as soon as the Fed's September meeting. But if they cut rates too soon, they risk letting tariff-fueled inflation take hold. If they wait too long, their high interest rate medicine could cost people their jobs. So where does this leave you? Can Jerome Powell's strategies actually help? The answer is yes, but it's a painful solution. The Fed's strategy isn't designed to make a tariff on imported goods disappear. Instead, it fights the symptom overall inflation by slowing down the entire economy. By keeping borrowing costs high, Powell is working to make sure the initial price shock from tariffs doesn't light a bigger inflationary fire. In that sense, his strategy is protecting the long-term value of your money. However, the cure has serious side effects. For the average American, the combination of tariff-driven price hikes and Fed-driven interest rate hikes is creating a massive cost of living squeeze. The price of goods is up, and the price of money is up. Here's the bottom line. The near future looks tough. Prices will likely stay high because of tariffs, and borrowing money will remain relatively expensive, even if the Fed starts to slowly cut rates. The Fed is playing a long game. It's trying to steer the economy back to that sweet spot of 2% inflation, believing that this stability is the best foundation for a healthy job market and real wage growth down the road. But getting there means navigating this toxic mix of conflicting policies, and for now, it's everyday Americans who are feeling the squeeze from both sides. What do you think? Are you feeling the impact of both tariffs and interest rates? Do you think the Fed is making the right call? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you want to understand more about the forces shaping our economy, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. And if you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up to help the channel grow. See you next time.